Howdy, this is AI 101 from AI Salon for February 8th, 2024. I'm Peter Kaminsky, and we've got a bunch of other fine folks here. RJ knows that I like Obsidian a lot, as do many people, and he was saying how he was playing with LogSeq because it's outliner focused. LogSeq is also kind of, I know people, I know LogSeq people and Obsidian people can work together kind of. I don't know exactly how that works out. I also know there's like, um, you can kind of do outlining in Obsidian, and then if you add some more plugins, you get outline-ish stuff, but that's kind of as much as I know. Do you want to tell us more, RJ?
Well, yes, I've been using Notepad++ for doing my outlining,
Mm-hmm.
but I really like it because it's like minimal distractions, very what they call Zen mode, where if you have trying to think things out, you don't have like a word processor or editor with a lot of buttons and stuff like that. So you can
Yep.
make it look very simple. And plus it can also have all your files on listed on the side that you're interested in. And it's just a nice work environment, but it had its limitations, especially um, with wrapping and auto indenting. And that was mainly because I didn't know to click the right buttons. So I went on a search for an alternative, and I saw that for outlining, a lot of people like LogSeq, and it's free and it's open source. And I thought, well, all right, let me give it a try. And what I like about it is it opens up a lot more capabilities for me in doing my outlining, thought processing, because it basically acts like a web browser for your computer. And instead of um, putting just like notes in an outline, you can also drag in um, pictures or diagrams or videos or other things, and they'll actually show up in player boxes in the LogSeq pages. And so I'm thinking of using that in addition to Notepad++, because the Notepad++ is very simple, no distractions. If I need to do something sophisticated with images and videos and audio recordings and whiteboard kind of things, I can do all of that very easily with LogSeq.
Awesome.
Yep.
Let me share this notepad real quick. Uh, and and I want to make sure one of the reasons I've kind of scheduled it at an odd time, I want to make sure that we hit GitHub and Git a little bit too, since we've got Hope here, and maybe building blocks. So first, let me share this. Oops, yeah, that works. I'm setting the permissions so that anybody can edit this. And then I'm going to share this link to the chat. And this link is kind of notes for this meeting for now. I'm going to copy these notes over to the website later. So always a little tricky to find chat when you're sharing screen, but and then you don't have to go to this link, but if you do go to this link, you'll see this same page live, and you can actually edit over here if you want and take your own notes, or help me take notes either way. RJ, I think you would have a fun time with some of the communities that I'm a part of, and one of the things that we worked on for a little bit that kind of went quiescent. I've got a bunch of friends um, who like knowledge management systems. So we started building a knowledge management catalog, basically, this tools for thought thing. And we didn't get as far as we wanted to. We got a few people got started, but we got a pretty good start on it. Um, so these people were participating, and Flancine, I think, was the person who made the best notes about stuff. Um, Flancian, Flancian has his own system called Anagora, which I'll show you real quick in a sec. And then this is what he works on. And you'll see Logseek would recommend it. Um, Obsidian can recommend it, although it's not open source. Flancian likes his open source stuff. Rome was super big actually before Obsidian was, and it had some good things and some bad things. Um,
And
the,
Logseek is very similar to Rome. It's like they borrowed a lot
yeah,
from Rome.
yeah, yeah. It's kind of an open source, uh, yeah, not
An open
equivalent,
source
but
version of Rome, yeah, which you have to
an
pay
alternative
for.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rome had some weird kind of the whole thing was weird. So Flancian makes this thing called Anagora, and he writes in this kind of like I write in HackMD, but he uses it like an outline too. Maybe I'll send you a DM with some of the meetings that I hang out with these other folks in. So one of the reasons that AI Salon is talking, AI 101 is talking about Obsidian is because my rationale is that Obsidian is a good way to manage information, and you need to manage a lot of files and information for when you're working with a chatbot or even an image generator. You end up managing prompts and conversations with the bots and which tools you're using and all that kind of stuff. And I find Obsidian to be a great tool for it, and Obsidian gets used for a lot of stuff. It's also a multi-purpose tool. So um, I wrote what it's called a static site generator that will take an Obsidian workspace and turn it into a website. Um, and the way that I go between Obsidian and the website and work with other people is actually on GitHub. Yay! So, uh, so all of that stuff, it's a little bit geeky, but kind of welcome to AI. It's a little bit geeky, and you're kind of doing some Wild West stuff. There's a lot of power that you can unlock by knowing a little bit of command line stuff, and I think a little bit of Git stuff and things like that. So I think it's good stuff. Um, so let's come back down to ground a little bit. And one of the things I like to do at the beginning of a meeting like this, I haven't gotten quite the discipline to do like topic-based meetings really well. And so what I like to do is have a few topics I want to talk about, and then also talk for people who haven't been to one of these AI one-on-one sessions or watched them on video. Um, I like to kind of make sure that if anybody's got burning questions about the latest AI systems or how to use an LLM, burning questions about maybe just getting started. So let's raise your hand or just unmute and yell out, "Hey Pete, I was really wondering about blah." And if you say that, then there's a good chance we'll cover it. And if you don't, there's a good chance we'll cover whatever else is interesting. Like local AI is a thing that we're kind of generally interested in right now. So anybody have anything burning that they want to do, or just go for it?
Um, Hi Pete, this is Jim Sharp. I usually listen to these recorded because the time doesn't work, but the burning
Wow.
question I have is maybe not answerable, but maybe somebody's figured it out because it's so new. But I signed up like half the salon did for Gemini Advanced today.
Yep.
And I was running into a very small context window. But all the documentation said that I found referenced like a 32K context window. Has anybody figured out how to get an actual 32K? Because I'm seeing like 8. maybe, and sometimes it's 4.
How can you how can you tell the context window?
So one of the techniques I was using was one of the limitations of Gemini Ultra right now is you can't upload files. So
Yeah.
even if you have a PDF, you're screwed. So I converted it to text, still can't upload it. So I just cut and pasted text in there, and it said, "Sorry, that's too long." So I cut it down to less, and it got down to like 20 lines. I mean, it was really, really insanely small.
Huh. Um,
Anyway, I just figured offhand because, maybe there was somebody here who's tried it and figured out the trick.
yep.
It's Gemini Ultra that's supposed to have 32K. I don't know how to pick the model other than choosing Gemini Advanced. You get a choice of Gemini or Gemini Advanced when you sign up. And I picked Advanced, assuming it was going to be Ultra, but not.
Jim, you're a brave person, and I congratulate you on your curiosity and drive.
So anyway, I'll sit back and listen. I'm excited for today's topic.
Okay. So I didn't hear anybody like shout out, oh, I know that the answer to that. Um, I am usually an early adopter, but I'll have to think about why I guess I'm super happy with GPT-4, and until somebody says, "Oh my God, you have to try this thing, it's better than GPT-4," it's like, yeah.
So I'll just chime in with one other thought. I'm actually
Hmm.
not happy with GPT-4. I'm one of those folks that
Nice.
always gets the lazy version, and stuff that it used to do flawlessly, I spend countless prompts saying, no, you do know how to do that. And eventually it does. So
Yeah.
I had high hopes for Gemini. I think it'll get there. I think the model itself is probably as good, but it's missing tons of features that GPT-4 currently has. So until it gets there, but on the good side, you get 2 months for free. If you go to sign up, you get 2 months grace period. You do have to put in a credit card. It'll say they'll start charging you after 2 months if you don't cancel, but you get to try it now for no cost.
Cool. Um, if uh, if I were Jim, if I were you, Jim, and I were frustrated with ChatGPT being lazy, I've never really noticed it. I mean, there was a few weeks where I was trying to get it to write a Python program or something like that, and it used to like write the whole thing and it'd be like, well, here's a little bit, you can fill in the rest. I'm like, dude, seriously?
Yeah.
But it seems to have gotten better for me. But if I were you, I would play I would play with GPT-4 through the API and maybe even switch the models around a little bit, and see if that helps.
Oh,
Um,
I'm fairly confident it will, because anecdotally somebody else so I posted some screenshots of a couple of the more interesting lazy examples. I posted those on Mighty Networks, just in the various, probably in water cooler. But the anecdotal evidence is somebody else posted that the assistant didn't act the same way. They're not getting the
yeah.
same lazy behavior. And I've seen what I believe is much better behavior out of GPTs. It looks like it's only the chat interface that I'm getting very frustrated with.
So a thing that I had a lot of fun with early on with GPT was actually alternate interfaces. And it's funny, the one I went to was called Chap. Um,
That's a good one.
this is a command line interface, and it's actually pretty cool. I don't know if I can really recommend it if you don't know command line stuff.
Oh,
Um,
I way old school. I lived on command lines before there were GUIs, so that's not an issue.
Me too. Um, so this was fun. I had started to write my own actually because like in the very early days, so one of the first things I was doing with ChatGPT was having it write Python to make a client for GPT. I to back up a little bit, everybody knows kind of ChatGPT, and you can go to the website and type stuff in. OpenAI also has that as they have like a server version. which you can access through what is called an API. So then if you have the right program, and you put in your OpenAI API key, which is kind of like a password, then you can use that front end, and talk kind of directly to their back end. And you can switch, actually, you can switch a couple things like which model you're using and stuff. Some of the
You
older
get a
ones or
lot
some
more
of the newer
model
ones.
control via the API.
Yeah. So this is one tool that you'll actually see that I'm a contributor on this one.
There you are. Yeah.
I I actually don't know Jeff at all, but at some point I made a few suggestions, and so this actually is a great example um, of a thing to do on GitHub. And I apologize for kind of like doing a round robin on the topics, but one of the conversations we had on water cooler or someplace like that was whether or not you should have a GitHub account. And um, if you're learning tech stuff, at some point somebody says, well, you have to have a GitHub account because when you make, when you do job applications, somebody's going to look at your resume, and then they're going to try to see you on GitHub, and they'll either be happy or sad that you have amazing GitHub profile. So because of that, students in tech classes get, one of the things, if they've got a decent professor, that a decent professor would say, okay, today's assignment is make a GitHub profile. Make sure you start contributing, do some stuff on GitHub to make it look like you're active. And the whole active thing, let me go to um, my profile. So GitHub keeps track of every time. It's funny, I kind of jumped right into GitHub, and maybe I should back up a little bit. GitHub is a place where for a long time, many open source projects, it's kind of like Twitter back in the day when Twitter was big, except that instead of exchanging little messages at each other, you work on source code together, kind of. Um, so and the more that happened, the more it happened. And so after a while, GitHub was the main place to go if you wanted to um, publish your open source stuff so other people could work on it, and vice versa. You could find open source projects and download them, like I found Chap and downloaded it to use the OpenAI API, or there's all kinds of open source stuff, right? So then if you're actually like working on the code or working on documentation, even, it doesn't have to be code, or working on anything in GitHub, it keeps track of what you're doing. And so this is kind of, this is a pretty good licking heat map, I think, for the last year for me. It's like, wow, this Pete guy is like doing a lot of stuff, in February he was doing stuff, in March and April and May he was doing stuff and this is weekdays down here. This is months across here. So you can kind of go back in time and see that Pete's been doing this for a while, and so then if you're looking at Pete's resume and you go, yeah, it looks like he knows what he's talking about, and he knows this tech stuff he's actually contributing. So there were years when I did very little, or I didn't do it on GitHub at least. And so the thing that a recruiter doesn't want to see is an activity thing that looks like this. It's like, okay, well, I can tell this was the day that they got the assignment to start a GitHub profile, and they did a lot of stuff on that day. And then, after that, I was like, well, okay, I guess I don't know what GitHub is, and I don't care. Um, so, uh, so one of the tricks, if you have a GitHub profile, there's like you can do profile stuff like a Twitter profile or something, or like a Instagram or a Flickr profile or something. There's like profile stuff, but really the main thing that matters, I guess, there's two main things maybe. There's whether or not you're actually contributing regularly, and whether or not you've got some repos of your own. I happen to have 207, which is a lot. There actually, some of them are copies of other people's, which is another thing that we'll get into sometime. But I also have these cool achievements, most of which are not that meaningful, but I think they're really cool looking. I like badges. And then there's another thing called organizations, which is something else to cover someday. So the thing to know about GitHub, yes, Obsidian Vaults. Sorry, if somebody should like chime in and say, "Hey, Pete, excuse me." I know that I can keep talking and not necessarily get um uh Hope's got a great question there. Hope, I love this question. What to name your vault? You can have multiple vaults. I have probably 50. Last time I counted, it was 50. It's probably like 60 or 70 at this point. And most of them are actually, let me get to kind of where I keep, so vaults, well, actually vaults vaults for Obsidian is a place where you store a bunch of like your text files, your markdown files. Um, Documents / GitHub. Yeah, there you go. These are almost all Obsidian vaults, as it turns out. And so for me, you can think of a vault kind of like a folder with lots of other folders in it. So this is the AI 101 Peter Kaminsky Wiki website right here. This is, well, actually another one. So I also have a kind of a club, small club I'm running called AI Entrepreneurs. So this is the AI Entrepreneurs Club website, actually. Maybe that's not a good example because it's another website. Name it, I'm a little bit dancing around. I have like lots of different vaults. And what I do is, here's one for iOS music production. I started publishing stuff about iOS music production. Here's another one, yeah, I don't see it in here, called my favorite music or something like that. I go back and forth with some of my friends. I like to make more vaults. They like to have one. You can do it both ways. I felt we were going to get more more wisdom out of that, but I feel like I didn't really get too much wisdom out of it. Make make more than one vault, but you don't necessarily have to make 50 of them. Hope, while we're kind of still on GitHub, are there questions I can answer or directions I can point you about GitHub?
Well, I have a generic question. Lots of times I'll see websites say, hey, to get this software, you can get it here, and they'll give a link.
Yep.
But then there's like a million files. Like, what's the easy way to find the link where you download the software?
Let's do a little experiment. I could show you on some of my repos, but let's do a little experiment because I know in AI 101 today, sorry, AI Salon. In AI Salon, Apple just released, if I don't have to go through a ton of Gemini stuff, Apple released an interesting sounding, and this is Jim. Interesting sounding image and image editor. Tried to say generator and editor at the same time. And you can find the Hugging Face place to try it. And here's the source code, and here's the Apple version of the source code. Let's go here. And a thing to do, actually, one of the well, this is a boring repo. I mean, that's maybe a good thing. Let's go to this one. That'll be scarier. Yeah. Um, let me say that GitHub is kind of hard to use. It's not. It's partly because there's a lot of tech stuff here. It's more because the people who are using it are tech people using it usually for their job. So they're getting paid to have lots of little fiddly details about things and to have lots of. It's kind of like going into like the tower at an airport or something like that, you know. Um, it's not nice and friendly like the passenger lounges. There's like probably computer screens all over the place and lots of lingo, and you know the air traffic controllers know what's going on because that's their job. So GitHub is a little bit like walking into an air traffic control tower. So you know a developer will know a bunch of stuff because they've had to learn it one way or the other. And then even developers find it. There's a lot of stuff you have to kind of wade through. So it's hard. So don't feel bad if it feels like GitHub is a little bit hard. So let's do like the really easy, you know, let's look at a random GitHub repo and kind of try to figure out what we can do with it. So the first thing to do is actually just to scroll down until you start seeing text like this. And the README thing. This is one of the files, and GitHub does a thing where you can upload a few files or a ton of files. If you have in the what's called the root directory, the topmost directory, the topmost folder, if you have a file called readme.md, and they actually push you to make a readme.md, this is the file that gets displayed as kind of the home page of this project. So, and sometimes you can't see it because there's too many files in the way. So you have to know to scroll down to it. And so theoretically, the developer would have put some stuff here to help you get, you know, this would say, here's how to install things. Here's what this is. Here's how to run it. These folks, with no offense intended, they didn't make this particularly easy to use. So, you know, before you have to scroll down past this requirements thing, which is a bunch of gobbledygook, and very important gobbledygook, but still gobbledygook, before you can even get to quick start. Part of the reason they have all that gobbledygook first is because as soon as you get to the quick start, you will have had to know that you needed to do something like this. So I don't know, maybe that's okay. Let's look at one of my repos now. And oh, so actually let's look before we do that, a few other things. Look for especially the README file. There's other things like sometimes the important files are like all caps like that. .md is a kind of text file. It's a markdown file. So don't be scared of an MD file. It's going to be an easy file. Like if I click on this, it'll show it to me and I can read it. And then another thing that is your friend is this is the home page of that repo. So no matter how deep you get, it can actually be kind of confusing to get back to, you know, where you might have been. But this is the home page. This is the publisher, the developer of this repo, and then this is the repo.
And repo is repository, I assume.
Yeah, repo is short for repository.
So Pete, while you're pulling up the other your other example site there to look at, I'll just make an apology or an excuse for GitHub. It was basically invented back in a much earlier day, and it was intended really only for shared code development environments. And since then, it has grown and grown and grown and used for many, many other things, including social things like the job stuff that Pete was talking about at the beginning of this call. And so the reason it looks like this is really it was designed for a different purpose than many people are using it for.
Good point, Jim. And it's gotten more complicated since then. So they've crafted on more stuff. By the way, we're since we're talking about GitHub, we're really close to talking about open source. And if we talk about open source and GitHub, we should start talking about Microsoft. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. But someday we'll talk about Microsoft and open source because it's kind of an interesting story.
And they bought GitHub.
They bought GitHub and they bought NPM and they, and they run and they published VS Code and they edged out Atom and Microsoft is kind of doing an embrace and control of open source is kind of where I'm going with that.
I was an Atom user before I wasn't.
I really liked Atom a lot, and somebody picked it up. It's now Pulsar, but I was sad to see GitHub kill Atom in favor of VS Code.
It freaked a lot of companies out because that's where they put their code, and now Microsoft owned the repository.
Yeah, it's a little troubling. So over here they have some help. So this is a quick thing to get to the README, quick thing to get to the code of conduct, quick thing to check what kind of activity is going on here. I was hoping to see a fun diagram, but I guess not. So another thing you'll see, and back to your question, RJ, a good open source application or something will make releases and maybe packages, but releases are the real thing that you want to look for. And they don't have any here. So it's early. They're not actually super, I mean, they don't care too much if people use their thing. So let's look at a different thing. I know it's GitHub and then I'm the publisher of it. Oops. I'm going to pretend that's not there. Well, I thought I could do an easy way of, actually, maybe I can. Yeah, except I just, now that I think about it, I moved this. I run a community called Massive Wiki, a community and also a software. This is all open source stuff. Massive Wiki. Massive Wiki works with Obsidian. It makes websites. So one of our core applications is called Massive Wiki Builder. And you'll see right away that under releases, here's releases. And we do a whole bunch of releases. So not only can I find the most recent one, I can scroll back and it's like, if this one doesn't work for me, I can scroll back to other releases. We have short release notes here. These could be longer, but these are pretty good. So depending on what kind of thing you ended up on, it may or may not be easy to download it and run it. So this happens to be a Python application, and it's easy to run for a Python, somebody who knows how to run Python programs, which are not necessarily developers, actually. Python programs are easy to run for people who know about Python, and they're not very easy to run for people who don't. So these instructions are also kind of like obtuse because this is a Python thing for a little bit developer-y. Let's try something else. I mentioned EXIF tool in the AI 101 space. And if I go to GitHub and I do a search for EXIF tool, I find it right here. They always show you the developer slash publisher slash company at the front, and then the name of the repo. So here's the official one, xftool/xftool. Here's somebody who's taken that one and made an enhanced Java integration for it. Wow. So that was published by Arcala. Here's a wrapper. A wrapper is something that makes it easier in some way, usually. So different people have their own copies of xftool or kinds of things that work with xftool. Let's look and see how easy it is to figure out how to use this one. So remember our trick. This is actually the home page, and all you have to do is scroll down and look at it. Phil's done an interesting thing here, and he's made this hard to read because he doesn't care about markdown stuff. But if you scroll down long enough, it's like, here's how to run it. Here's how to download it. Go to the website and download it. Don't bother with the GitHub thing. And that actually kind of makes a lot of sense. You'll also see there's a website up here. So if somebody said, hey, go download xftool, as soon as I saw this, I probably would have gone there, and this will tell you more. There's the download link. So here's the Windows XE and the Mac OS one. So this is a better way to download xftool.
At the top one, how did you know which platform it was for? Because it just says download.
This one? I think, actually, I can see down at the bottom of my thing what that link is. So it ends in .tar.gz. There's no easy way to know, but this is the Unix version. And Phil Harvey is a Unix guy, and so it was originally built in Unix, and he doesn't care if you don't know that this is the Unix version. It's like, you ought to be able to figure it out because whatever. So this would have been a big clue to go, I don't know. A lot of software, if you click on the download link, they will have like Obsidian works that way, right? Any modern software works that way. They'll have a big get or download button, and they will have already selected the right one for you. If I went to this on a Windows computer, this would say get Obsidian for Windows. And then, if they guessed wrong, or I'm getting it from my friend who's on Windows, I can say more platforms and scroll down to the Windows one. But so this could have been, it's tempting to think this would have been one of those auto detect things. It's not, it just happens to be the Unix one. And I know that because I'm a Unix person. I know .tar.gz. I guess I have fun switching topics around.
Oh, wait,
and this one
Hope has
came
a
out.
question about what is the
Oh, yay,
xftool?
Let's go look at where I talked about it in AI 101. Oops. Sorry, today I'm getting AI 101 and AI Salon mixed up, which is not a bad thing, I guess. So here's my post. This is how to use xftool to retrieve the image prompt from a Midjourney PNG file. Huh. So I just posted a tech note to the AI 101 website. It's a command line tool. So Pete keeps telling me I should learn command line. I'm still not sure, but whatever. Oh, good. He'll be teaching more about how to use command line. Okay. But maybe we should also look for GUI-based tools that do the same thing. So xftool is kind of famous for if you do like any digital photography for a while, you start to want to know, like, where did I take this? When did I take it? What were the camera settings for it? And a long time ago, when they started making digital cameras, all the camera manufacturers agreed that it would be cool to keep that kind of stuff. And wow, if we did it all in a standard way, then everything would be better. So they did that, and the data that you have in the data that's stored is in a format called EXIF. Not that you would have to know that. This is background information that's interesting, but in some sense boring boring history. I wonder if this is a picture. Uh, So this is what usually you'll see for EXIF data, the ISO speed, the date and time. Nowadays you see latitude and longitude because cameras have GPSs, what camera it was. If somebody was smart enough to set the settings and say that, I want all the pictures taken by me on my Canon EOS 1200D to be P Praveen, that'll be burned into the image as well.
For privacy purposes, Peter, I think,
Mhm.
do people strip out some of this data so that like their location is private
The
and
the
not in
the
the
critical
picture?
thing, yeah, the critical thing to strip is GPS info. Yes, because I just took a picture of my dog and I posted it to social media, and if it has your GPS location, then poof, you've just doxed yourself. Um, Pretty much nowadays, it's hard to do that because I don't Apple, anytime you share an image, it strips it all out. I'm not sure that Android does that, but then the social media sites, Facebook or Twitter or whatever, they strip it out. So it's a lot less leaky, but yeah, that's a thing, yes. And usually what you do is you find a website or maybe a fancy image tool or something like that that does it. I've got an image tool actually that I use a lot called Photo Bulk. I use this to resize stuff. I have a newsletter. Um, uh, I have a newsletter where people share images like this, and especially more flowery ones like this. So people will send me stuff straight from the camera. It's super huge, and I want to make it web size. So part of my workflow is dragging and dropping images onto here. One of the things they have is metadata. What should I do with the metadata? Keep it or delete it all. Keep all, delete all. Metadata, another really strong use for metadata in images is news photographers. You can also put like copyright information, and news photographers and newspapers um, actually use a different system called IPTC, but IPTC is similar to EXIF, and it tells you more about the image for manage the image and the publishing workflow of newspapers. Um, anyway, so if Pete says something intriguing like this, and Joy said, I would really like to learn this. I hope Joy sees this and gets a start, and I would love to talk more about EXIF tool. But anyway, my thing is I've got literally thousands um, of uh, thousands of Midjourney files, right? Here's like a little bit of today, and I guess this is not just today, it's a few days, but these are just a few of like from today. If you saw the one on the moon thing, these are different ones from, I think that's mostly, well, different ones. So I've got thousands of these things, right? And by the time I'm looking at it again a month later or 2 months later, I have no idea what the prompt is. And it's like, well, this is such a cool little mouse. What was the prompt for this? I would swear that should double click. So it turns out that Midjourney saves it in the file. So all I have to do is know how to retrieve it. I don't think I don't think this image tool will do it. Even though it knows a little bit of stuff, like this one has camera specific properties, but it doesn't show me the Midjourney prompt. So EXIF tool is it's a Swiss Army knife of metadata. It grew from being a simple tool that would let you, print a little bit of metadata to now it knows hundreds of file formats and hundreds of ways of metadata is stored and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, Again, it's a command line tool, for better or for worse. But what you do is you say, I want to run exif tool, and then I'm going to drag and drop this onto my terminal. My command line window is called terminal. And then dragging and dropping it onto the terminal just means, hey, put the full path to that file here so that I can return. And it tells me all the metadata that file has. So then
So
the interesting thing,
the question that Hope has is, if somebody else, gives you the file, will that info be there? And I suppose if they got the file from Midjourney and they post it as it was, the data should be in there, right? Unless the host is stripping it out, like you said.
if they post it to Twitter or Instagram or something like that, I think by the time you get it from Instagram, I don't think they're going to have it left. The other thing that's going to happen, if I'm posting an image to Instagram or Twitter, there's a good chance I've done some additional modifications with other tools. So every tool may or may not keep the data. But so I guess that's the does somebody have an image on Midjourney that they wouldn't mind us peeking at the is anybody here a show and tell person or not? Super interesting to try it, but I would feel bad downloading somebody's image and peeking at it, even though, I mean, that's anyway. So
So Pete,
yeah.
Is there a benefit to having the prompt that created the image? Because my experience is putting the same prompt in doesn't get the same image.
That's a
It might get
brilliant question,
directionally close. It might get directionally close, but it doesn't give me. I've not gotten the same image back out of it. So I just
that's a brilliant question. The use case for me, it still gets me in the right direction, right? It's still useful, I think. A lot of it is actually to be able to tell somebody, here's the prompt because they asked, right? And then, as you said, and as we know, the prompt may or may not get you back an image that you want, but it does get you close, and it does. It's like if I found, like, if I were digging through. If I were digging through, let's scroll way back. So I can't remember what these are. And then wait for it to load, I guess. Like understanding these are all like patios or something like that. But I there's a utility for me, I think, in getting this prompt and going, oh, okay, that's how I did it. And it's definitely a big starting place, I think.
Peter, can I ask a related question?
Please, yeah.
The
So on
sign
this,
in,
on the same
we're
line of,
sign in with a passcode. And I'm wondering if maybe someone has to give you a passcode to sign in. Because there's no,
Sign into what?
I think somebody was not on mute, perhaps. Now,
Maybe, yeah.
my question is, so just like Jim said, I think it was Jim, if you have the prompt, you won't probably get the picture that you're looking at.
Yeah.
But my question is, do these large language models make their images knowing what the previous pictures were, and somehow that conversational history is part of what's in its processing when it comes up with a picture for the latest prompt? And I ask that because, well, maybe if that's true, maybe if a person had several picture prompts that were in like a conversation somebody had over a session, and then loaded all of those prompts as separate pictures, maybe the last picture prompt would be more close to what the person actually got.
It's a good question, RJ, and the short answer is the image generators don't have a kind of a history and understanding of previous images. There's a little bit of there's a little bit of an exception to that. So if I go to ChatGPT, I can make dolly images, right? And within this conversation, it's ChatGPT is actually really good at knowing what the previous image was, and so I was trying to help a friend get Dolly to make a particular shape, kind of a shape of purple and orange fabric for a kind of a background logo thing. So I started with just kind of a random thing, and then you can say, you know, make this change to that image, and it'll do that change. So I kept doing that, right? Can you make some of the transparent background show? So it's like, yeah, sure. It didn't really do what I wanted, but sometimes it doesn't work. I tried zoom in more and it didn't really want to zoom in ever. But ChatGPT, so in this case, ChatGPT has a good understanding of what previous images are in this conversation, and you can morph an image based on that. But in general, and in the background, what's happening is ChatGPT, I give it this prompt, ChatGPT rewrites my prompt to be this. And then Dolly doesn't know the difference between this one and this one. It's ChatGPT that does. So when I said make this into, instead of a tangle, make it into a knot, ChatGPT was the part of the system that wrote tangled together in a circular knot shape.
Thank you.
So so, Scott, actually a really good example of something, since we went back far enough, we went back into December to find this image. A really good use case is, hey, now I've got 6. This was general with 5.2. Let me try the same prompt with 6, right? And even though you don't get the same image back, you get an image that's got some stuff to do with it, right? So while we're talking about prompts, by the way, I learn a fair bit by looking through Explore and looking at the prompts that people are using. Um, and I actually like keep a little notebook of the ones that were, and not to reuse their prompt usually even, but like, oh, that's an interesting effect. How did they get that? Or sometimes I try to guess, well, I would have gotten this with twinkling lights that, hanging down on a wire or something like that. White fairy lights hanging down like vines. So how close did I get? Did they do it? Did they come up with something better? So studying others people's prompts, if you have access to them, I think is a good practice.
So there's still more questions like Hope has about in the chat about, how much the models actually know about the pictures it's recently just made within the session, and does it know, like, if you like number 2, that you can say, hey, make it more like number 2, or I would suppose that it depends on the dialogue management system of the large language model.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah. ChatGPT is really good at that. And I wonder in this conversation if I can say, hey, the one that was tangled but didn't have a knot, can you make that? Let's try that. Or here I could say the first image, but I wonder if I say the image that didn't have a knot, could you change the colors to blue and gold? I think seeds also came up, and um, a really good way. So I'm gonna go while that's doing stuff. This has been happening. I actually ChatGPT for me and probably everybody. It's been really flaky. I get network errors a fair bit. So while it's doing that, I'm going to bring up a local image generator called this is Draw Things. Under the hood, it's Stable Diffusion, and so the model is Stable Diffusion, more or less, and then this is a front end that somebody wrote. And I figured out last time I demoed this in AI 101, I was too shy to click on the advanced settings, but it turned out that the where I needed to go was the advanced settings. But it's funny, I see seed mode here, but not seed. Maybe I should do all. So stable Dolly has a seed, but I'm not, and there was a way to find it. I'm not sure it's super useful. Stable diffusion is definitely useful, and here is usually this is a long list of numbers, like the last 10 numbers I've used. There's a couple different things you could put in a seed. So if somebody said, hey, use this prompt in this seed, you can kind of recreate it. Generate a random seed, but keep this one for the next few images I'm going to do, and I'll just change the prompt a little bit. And then there's another one which is roll the dice every time new seed on generation. The this the let me do. I know way too much about random numbers, and let me just do a pointer to this real quick. And this would be better to ask ChatGPT, but anyway. Computers have had to make like creative numbers, creative settings, creative starts for things. Like I used to use a pseudo random number generator back like when I was making video games in the early 80s. So they've been around a long time. It's actually hard to get a computer to make really random stuff, but it's pretty easy to make almost random stuff. And the algorithms that you use start off with a single number. You put in a single number, and then there's a complicated set of calculations that kind of goes around and around and around, and then it spits out another number. So the pseudo-random part, the algorithm part, is deterministic. That means it's always going to do the same thing, and it's actually just the seed that makes it come out with different things. So that's where seed comes from. So then when we got into image generators, they use seeds a lot. And then Midjourney has the concept of a seed. And you don't see it very often because we've kind of gotten away from using seeds. But I think if I want to get the seed for this image, what I do is this, I emoji it with an envelope. So here's the seed for these 4 images. Separately, it's just a Midjourney thing that it generates 4 images at a time. And in the Discord interface, the way that you tell it, I want to do something with this image or this image, is they have numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. And then so U1 means upscale 1, 2, 3, 4, vary 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a super simple thing. It's not complicated or anything. It's not understanding anything. It's just it's just a convention. I thought we were going to do something fun with ChatGPT, and I probably got myself. There you go. So it doesn't have a knot. So just me asking that image that didn't have a knot, and then could you change it? So did the right thing. And as RJ said, it's because the conversation management system is, got memory of the conversation. I was really surprised. Another fun thing to do with ChatGPT, by the way, is to give it a photo or something. This isn't exactly a photo, but it's kind of close. And then you can say, describe this image. Or the image descriptions always blow me away. You can do other things like give me the keywords, give me tags for this image. And it'll say mouse, cute, anthropomorphic, realistic, olive green hoodie. I like that one a lot. Or another fun thing to do is create a DALL-E prompt that would generate an image like this. And because I usually use Midjourney, I say do not create an image, because otherwise ChatGPT is kind of tempted to create an image if it sounds like you want an image. So this prompt is different from the description in the way that would be useful for either DALL-E or for Midjourney. So where I was going with this is there was a day when I was fooling around. I guess I do this all the time when I was waiting for a friend, or when I'm out walking the dog and it's golden hour, and taking pictures of all kinds of random things. I've got a nice zoom on my smartphone, so I zoomed way in and took a picture, and then I zoomed way out and took a picture, and to me they look like completely different pictures. So I said, hey ChatGPT, what's this, what's this zoomed in one? And it told me, that's a flag, blah, 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 next to the building, blah. So then I zoomed way out and I gave it that one, and I said, what's this image? And it's like, well, in the middle of that, way far in the background, is the previous image. And, I'm like, dude, seriously? So it blew me away.
Wow.
It's like, freaked me out. Anyway, so ChatGPT has a fairly good understanding of what's going on with images. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I got myself distracted away from EXIF tool. Let's look at this real quick. I said, I promised that we would get the prompt here, and there's no prompt. All there is this warning. I went around and around. I kind of tricked myself and got myself super confused. And I ended up getting convinced that EXIF tool had a bug in it. And I was pretty proud of myself because this is software that's bulletproof. It's been around forever. So I was figuring out how to like say, hey guys, I found this weird bug. If you take a Midjourney image and you try to use it, I know it's in there because my another tool finds it, but this tool doesn't find it. So then finally I kind of did some more careful testing. This is an image of the mouse that got downloaded from Discord, and it doesn't work if you download it from Discord. So if you clicked on the page that I said to go to from AI 101, how to use EXIF tool to retrieve the image prompt, right here, that's how I learned, or that's where I wrote this down. This does not work for images downloaded from Discord. So let's go to Midjourney and download one real quick. It's tempting to download somebody else's, but I won't. These are actually kind of boring prompts, even though they're really cool images. Those are gonna be, actually, these are kind of cool. I kind of randomly got old movies old Chinese movies stuff. So anyway, this is a pretty interesting prompt. Um, so let's download this image and find it on my computer. I guess it's way up here. And then do the EXIF tool on this one. So, so this time I think it's going to work. EXIF tool, drag and drop. And here you go. There's the prompt. And there's the job ID. It's kind of interesting, and it doesn't put the seed in here, but from the job ID, you could look up the seed.
Oh,
Here also is where Wikipedia had the owner of the camera. Midjourney sticks your Midjourney name, which is kind of cool too. So then a thing that you do with command line tools is you use what's called flags or arguments, and usually they start with a dash or two dashes. So I happen to know that if I say dash description, EXIF tool will just print the description and not all the other stuff. And then there's ways I can do stuff with this with other command line tools, or actually, let me find some more downloaded, I guess. Yeah, these are all boring prompts. Yeah. These prompts all have the prompt stock photos, but then they have variations on the chaos and the weirdness, I think. So so the reason I get excited about EXIF tool is because it's not so much that it's not so much for doing it once, it's for doing it like hundreds of times or thousands of times, which of course computers are good at. So so I can kind of get to the right place on my computer, and now I can say EXIF tool, just do all of them. That's not very useful because it scrolled off all of them. So now if I say EXIF tool dash description, all of them, star means all of them. Let me redo that. So for, wow, I think it went into upscale too. That's weird. Anyway, it went through all of those, and didn't do what I said. Let me say PNG. So for this, this is the file name, and this is the file name, and this is the file name. This is the description, which is the prompt. Oops, this is the prompt. I know this is a hot mess. Usually what I would do is make it less of a hot mess somehow. And my tool of choice is Emacs, but so these are all the prompts. So then, you know, I can do something like, you know, out of all of these where I was playing around with weird and stylized, I guess, and chaos. You know, which ones are the best ones, and so on and so forth. By the
is
way,
there, Peter, just real quick, is there any etiquette about using other people's prompts?
not really. I think it would be rude. Um, but on the other hand, it's just a prompt, you know. There's so I guess I guess I typically don't use a whole prompt, but I don't have a problem like taking part of a prompt, like surrounded by gold, silver, jewelry, crystal treasure, or with relief effect. You know, it's like that feels generic enough to me. In practice, this person, I mean, they didn't decide to hide their prompt. And there's a whole nother thing about Midjourney and whether or not they even know that this is going on. Um, hmm, I don't know. I guess it's a, the, there's not a lot of good etiquette. And I'm sure there are different places. Mostly it's whether or not you can sleep sleep at night. Uh, a similar question is if you find an image you really like on the web, what do you think about getting it into ChatGPT and say, hey, ChatGPT, regenerate an image like this? You know, it's kind of there's a gray area there. The legal thing um, is it copyrighted, and are you making a copy of it? So you would get, I guess there's a lot of gray area about whether or not, if I took somebody's image, maybe one of the famous, like the Obama Shepherd Ferret's Obama, image, when is it when is it an interpretation of it? When is it like I'm kind of stealing it? When is it, anyway. I don't feel like I give you a great answer to that, but there aren't great answers. Since we hit this interesting place with these different, wonder if I saved that. You saw me, I've got chaos 0, chaos 30, chaos 60, chaos 80, chaos 90, and stylize 4, 800, things like that, and weird. This is a simple trick for Midjourney. And if you go into fast mode, you can do this really cool thing where you say imagine and then I'll use a cute little mouse for a prompt. Whatever you put in curly braces, you can put more than one thing in curly braces and it will do a prompt for each of those. So actually, let me demo this with a cute little mouse with a hat, umbrella. Sorry if this is hard to see. Let me move it up a little bit at least. Frog, cat. So let me start that. So it checks, hey dude, you just asked me for 4 prompts. Is that okay? And I'll say yes. So the really cool thing is you can say, imagine a cute little frog. So instead of making it part of the prompt, I can also use the parameters. I can say I want it to be chaos 0, 50, 90. And I want to explore weird of 0. Weird goes up to 3,000. So we want to kind of cover the range. Let's call it 500, 1,500, 3,000. So if I do this, so here's our cute little mouse with a hat, umbrella, frog. This didn't come out so great, I think, and a cat. Midjourney still has trouble getting things to look at each other. It's really funny. Anyway, If I do two things like this, it actually does the multiplex of them. So it's going to do chaos 0 for all of the weird values and chaos 50 for all the weird values and chaos 90 for all the weird values. So that is going to be 12 prompts. And so this is a great way to go, huh, this weird thing, what does that do? Or this chaos thing, and what does that do? And how do chaos and weird interact? So I had a blast. My fast hours renew every 8th. So it was actually today, this morning, that it said, hey, you've got new fast hours. And I'm like, I'm kind of conservative with my fast hours, but towards the end of the month, right, the past week or two, I was burning through lots of things. You can do up to 40 multiplex things at a time. So sometimes I was varying like 3 different variables. It's kind of funny. I guess I'm slowly getting used to the web interface. It's kind of hard to see all those images up close and personal through Discord. So now it's easier to do this. So the prompts for these are all the same, a cute little frog, but you can see chaos 90, weird 1500. Oh, and then it's doing 4 at a time for each one of those. Here's weird 500. So pro tip for Midjourney for today, to burn through your fast hours faster. Um, so we're probably coming close to end of time. Any things I didn't cover that we should definitely cover in the next 5 minutes, or stuff we should queue up for the next session?
Well, I would like to learn how to, if I ever start using these picture models, I'd like to learn how to get it to make something repeatable in its style. Like in particular, I was wanting to make stickman images. Um, so like if I were trying to do a storyboard and I said, okay, large language model, make a stickman image of a stickman, you know, doing something in particular, maybe having such and such an expression on its face.
Yeah,
And this way I could do a storyboard. I could say, do that and then do it again in this new situation so that there'll be different frames to the storyboard. I was thinking it's probably easy to train a large language model, like with a LoRa kind of approach, maybe. I don't know.
yeah. Midjourney just came out with a thing called consistent style, and the thing I'm looking for is somebody who did a decent write-up on it. It's not great. And I don't remember their name, so I can't find it offhand. But it's actually kind of devilishly difficult to get things to be consistent. And then there's consistent style and consistent characters. So Midjourney just introduced something where you have like stick figures would be a good thing. You can say, you give it an image of a stick figure and then you ask for different prompts and it would always do that stick figure style with different prompts. That wouldn't keep the character consistent necessarily. Um, Character consistency in Midjourney is actually coming up pretty soon, I think. So um, people have been doing that with LoRa is a decent way to do it. LoRa is a way of kind of after training, you can add customized training, I guess, to an image generator. So that'll get you a consistent, more or less consistent style. I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
It's a big topic, actually.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And it's one of the things that people are trying really hard to do a lot in lots of different ways. Um, other wrap questions? funny. I thought I was sharing my screen, so I was looking up consistent styles, but in my bookmarks, but I didn't find what I wanted to. Or am I sharing?
No, you're not sharing now.
I lost Zoom. Yeah. Something I mentioned in the past week or so. I'm interested in AI one-on-one sessions where someone else is teaching something that they know about. So RJ, for instance, knows a lot about. I think it was Pi we were talking about, RJ. And so maybe for a whole 90-minute session, maybe for a 5-minute session. I'm interested. I haven't written up a post yet actually, so I haven't gotten around to it. But I'll post a thing that says, hey, let's get more people teaching what they know about something cool in AI. So I'm gonna start doing that. So start
Yeah, I
thinking
thought
of
it would
something that you
actually
want to
be
share.
good to, it would be good to actually have a session with people where we sort of have a conversation with Pi. And this way people can learn, and while they're actually participating in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So what we would do is, somebody would maybe start the conversation with Pi by, just saying what they want to say, like you did with last time with that speech notes.co software. And then, people can see how Pi replies. And then if people want to ask a follow-up question or make a follow-up statement, they could do that. And it could be like maybe for, a half hour even, because some of these responses that the Pi gives are very intelligent. So you
Yeah.
can end up having a really in-depth conversation with it for a long time on topics.
One of the more interesting things I did with Pi a couple months back was I launched two different instances of Pi. One was on my laptop and one was on my phone. For the sake of argument, I created different voices so it'd be less confusing. But I basically just started it off with one question, and Pi was having a conversation with itself. And it went back and forth and back and forth. And it was the most fascinating thing because and I was able to reproduce this on several different occasions. In fact, every time you do that, it eventually, the conversation devolves in this syrupy soup of empathy. They have empathy dialed up to 11 in Pi. That's one of the reasons why it's such a great tool to talk to. And but if you let Pi talk to Pi, pretty soon they're just oozing all over each other. And no matter what topic you give it, it will always end up that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, need to
Yeah.
have a co-pilot talk to Pi.
No, Grok talk to Pi.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen videos on YouTube where people have been doing that for quite a while. And I don't know whether you've noticed, but I also posted on the AI Salon where I had different language models doing a rap competition with each other. And that was a lot of fun. They did a really good job. I was amazed.
Yeah, fun with AI tools. Well,
Yeah.
thanks, Pete. This has been great. I'll try and attend more of these live instead of watching them laugh after.
So Jim, what would you be willing to give us a tutorial on or a demo?
There's probably a dozen different things. Maybe I'll talk to Pete offline because he knows his audience a little better, and we'll pick out something. Like lately, some of the more interesting ones I've been posting to the water cooler discussion or the news thing. So if there's any topics in there that you're particularly interested in, just direct message me. Lately, I've been doing a lot of stuff with agents.
Yeah, any demos, little short demos, I think people would really like.
Yeah, although
Yeah.
to be fair, I usually try and break things. You know, the happy case is real easy. You can go to YouTube for all of those kind of things. So I usually like to poke on edge cases to say, okay, what happens if you do this? But
Those actually make good demos too.
Yeah, they do.
anyway,
Um,
Pete, I'll talk to you
uh,
offline.
Yeah, DM me, Jim, and RJ, I'm gonna DM you too, and we'll set some schedule up, and I'll write up a little bit more cohesive thing of what I'm thinking of in the channel.
I do like
Um,
the 5 minute short segment thing, because then that way we don't have to prep as much.
I think keeping it short is a good idea. Yeah.
And also informal and sort of like, off the cuff kind of presentation,
Yeah,
experience.
yeah, it doesn't have to be super set up. I definitely agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it's totally boring and esoteric, you've only wasted 5 minutes of everybody else's time.
We'll see y'all. Good night.
Thanks,
Thanks for your
Peter.
time.
Thank you. It's been great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Take
Take
care.
care, everybody. Thanks.
All right,
Bye.
thanks, Peter.
Good night.